the problem with CrossFit. Why on earth do you want to get into this box of frogs, I hear you ask? But as a coach, somewhat of a competitor, someone who has clients that compete in the sport, and obviously have been swilling around in said industry for a few years now, I feel like I've got a perspective worth sharing on it. Not only that, you might be aware that I've committed to one YouTube video every month for the year, and you've got to get your content ideas from somewhere. It's not easy. If you're wondering why I'm standing next to a road, Bali life, getting some more drinking water. Let's go. Come with me onto our rooftop, today's studio. When we talk about CrossFit, we need to know there's multiple branches of the term CrossFit, and I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes in for people when they start slating it, or when they start hearing other people slate it. They don't understand that it's comprised of multiple different things, and the three that come to mind are CrossFit the brand, CrossFit HQ as it's sometimes referred to as, in charge of the CrossFit Open, the season, the CrossFit Games, things like that. You've got the training methodology, which actually separates CrossFit from other training methodologies, what people will have experienced if they've gone to a CrossFit affiliated gym, the actual way that you train. And then you've got CrossFit the sport, that's inclusive of the CrossFit Games, but also expands slightly wider than that, because you've got so many independent competitions which are essentially CrossFit competitions. They're utilising a variation of the methodology, but it's being pushed in a certain way which is not reflective of what you would see in a class environment. It's pushing things harder, and as a result of that, some people's training, if they are training to be a competitor, does change to better align with the actual sport side of things, because they are trying to compete as opposed to just trying to make a positive change or train in a more generalized way. If we're going to work through the pitfalls of CrossFit in order, starting with the brand, I think you can label it with two main things which are wrong with CrossFit as the brand: a lack of competency and a lack of consistency. Obviously, competency being epitomised by letting one of your top flight athletes die at the pinnacle of your sport, CrossFit Games. It literally doesn't get any worse than that. And consistency kind of intertwined with competency. It feels like sometimes CrossFit can just never get anything right. People just come to expect with CrossFit, whenever they're doing anything, for there to be something wrong with what they're doing, when it really shouldn't be the case. How many times do the NFL, the NBA, or the Football Association consistently make mistakes? The truth is, CrossFit's still in its infancy, really. Can't actually remember when it started, but early 2000s. So yeah, there's going to be teething issues, but like at the scale it's at, is there really an appropriate excuse for some of the shit that goes on? I don't really think so. Take 2024 as an example, opening up the qualification for quarterfinals to a bigger percentage of people than what it would normally be. Also lowering the technicality of the workouts to allow it to be more accessible for the general public, and then the following year getting rid of quarterfinals altogether, getting rid of semi-finals as we knew it, completely restructuring things, and only taking the top 1%. Just make it make sense. It's the two polar opposites. Just 1 year on, you would like to think that's as a result of restructuring funding and prioritising a bit more safety after the 2024 games, but who knows at the end of the day. 5 points if you have realised that it is a different day and I'm in a different place. This is the place I come to. New tattoo. This is a place that I come to and secretly film my content. It's another gym. They've got a nice little outdoor area. The lighting is spot on. Got my tracking on as well. And I don't pay for an open gym membership. I sneak in and mumble to the camera a bit and then slope off. But I've just done some content for the day, so it's a perfect opportunity to continue my rant about CrossFit. We've spoken about CrossFit HQ. Let's talk about the CrossFit methodology. This is where there's kind of two sides of the coin, as there is with all of these topics, to be fair. You've got CrossFit methodology which is being sold to the masses in class environments, the thing that has kind of stemmed and been more so what people are familiar with when they have a CrossFit experience, basically. But then you've got the actual HQ programming, obviously going back to HQ again for a bit, but they obviously on CrossFit.com would put out programming which a lot of CrossFit boxes would actually follow, and that does differ from what you would likely see in one of these more modern gyms. Now these more modern gyms which have potentially taken CrossFit's methodology and run with it a little bit, probably, to be fair, are doing so to apply a bit more progressive overload, but they're probably also doing so to maximise that kind of CrossFit feeling, both from a community perspective and so that people know what they get when they come into a class, i.e. they will always have a strength piece, maybe an accessory piece, probably not, and a conditioning piece at the end, whereas CrossFit .com, I think we'll refer to it as, when they would program, yes, there would be elements of that, but there would also be elements of days which were completely centered around skill development. They were not constantly penned into that structure of strength metcon, and for that reason that obviously caps your intensity a little bit more. It allows you to develop certain things, but what you do lack is that element of progression, which is arguably more prominent in gyms which are doing their own thing. Even if they are just doing strength metcon, they might be doing gymnastics classes, they might be offering programming outside of that. Then you've got the other side of CrossFit programming, which is going to feed more into the actual sport. Even CrossFit programming in your average gym might be enough, if it's done well, to get someone to a point where they could be a really good competitor. No one's ever too good to do a class by any means, but at the same time, for that to make up all of their training, there's quite a high likelihood that they will be missing certain parts of development, because quite simply everyone's got weaknesses. Everyone needs to pay attention to certain movement patterns in more isolation than what you would generally see, definitely from the HQ or the .com side of programming, and very likely from the side of the commercial CrossFit gyms programming too. That is obviously where people like me come in, who are offering a little bit more, you would say, strength and conditioning biased programming to really elicit that linear progression for people, giving those people direct, bespoke, tailored programming, which is, of course, you would say that's where people like me come in, who provide a personalised, bespoke programming coaching service, which is going to tailor all of those things that they want to get good at and make it 100% specific to them and their weaknesses, basically. Arguably the perfect time to plug my services. I'm sure I'll leave a link below this video in the description. But essentially, what's involved with programming for someone that maybe wants to get to a more of a competitive level, or just wants to unlock these like elusive movements that everyone has. You know, for some people it's toes to bar, for some people it's their first strict handstand push-up. Those are often the people that I am dealing with, as well as, you know, some people which want to have a well-rounded game for a competition or something like that. But also for people that just need that linear progression, that feeling of working directly towards the goals that they want, so then they can go and put it into play, whether it is in a in-house competition, even if it's in a class within their friends. And you know, with that more tailored, that more centered, focused approach, that's exactly what we can do. Then of course you've got almost the final string to the bow of the variations of programming, and that is just the actual level for programming for people. I.e., if you are again, training in a class, or even training with a certain coach that normally coaches people of a certain level, and you want to be the best of the best, you need to be performing training which is reflective of that, with someone that's familiar with that. And especially in a class environment, the class is going to be programmed to, on average, the best person in that class, with scaling options to, on average, the least proficient person in that class. Very likely, if you are pushing for quarterfinals, semi-finals, you're not going to fall under that bracket. Therefore, that's when the elite programmers come in and do the job. Then there is the final string to the bow when it comes to programming. It's quite simply the elite level. Obviously, if you wanted to compete at that elite level, you can't be doing classes which are averaged out for maybe the best person in that class. Even if you are the best person in that class and you are the elite, it's going to be an average, so it's going to be something that you might be able to get a good training stimulus from, but if you're a serious competitor, you're not going to risk having your training jeopardized by that factor. Likewise, even if it's not with a class, even if it's with a coach that is surrounded in that environment of elite competitors and is taking people to the games, and that's your goal, then quite simply that is what you're going to do. But as you can see, there's so many strings to the bow, even on the methodology of CrossFit training, let alone strings to the bow when it comes to, I need to use a different expression for that really, but let alone when it comes to the broad term of CrossFit in general. The sport and the competition of CrossFit being our final topic has somewhat been struggling over the last few years, and I do think that is intertwined with poor performance of the brand as well, but not solely down to that either. There were things going wrong way before the 2024 games, and popularity definitely wasn't at its highest. That being said, with the rise of a couple of other independent things from CrossFit entirely, I do think there is hope yet. Hyrox, that forbidden word, aside from all of the banter that people like to have on social media and talking shit about one another, I am certain that Hyrox is complementing CrossFit. If not now, somewhere along the line it will be at a greater level, but I've seen it firsthand speaking to my friend who's a gym owner, and also recently become Hyrox affiliated, seeing the fact that people are coming in looking for Hyrox and gradually starting to pay attention to what's happening on the other side of the gym, things outside of those eight movements. Is it 8 stations? That's 8k of running, maybe it's 7 stations, I should know because I've done one. And they gradually bleed into CrossFit. They gradually bleed into things that are more technical, that are going to potentially give people more satisfaction, more things to work for, and ultimately support perhaps the dying sport of CrossFit. But I don't think it's dying. Maybe just in a bit of a low spot at the moment. The World Fitness Project, something that seems to have taken some of these pitfalls and made note of them over the years, and has tried to build out a competition for the top flight athletes, which is ticking all of those boxes. A lot of people were saying that the athletes, from their perspective, weren't being treated like athletes. Their safety wasn't being prioritised. The practicality of being a full-time athlete wasn't being respected enough, in that there's not a lot of support from the top, from CrossFit. Everything comes from supporting brands, and your wages are only there if the prize money's there. Obviously people are getting paid from sponsors and things like that, but the more competition, the more chance there is to show people the talent and be in front of thousands of spectators, the more sponsorship opportunities are going to be there as well. And if this World Fitness Project can work to combat that from both angles, I can only see that as being a net positive. The final part of the competitive CrossFit sport / section, I think, is to talk about the independent competitions which maybe aren't affiliated, whether they're in-house, whether they're people just trying to do something for their own local CrossFit community. I think that really is the background, or so the backbone of competitive CrossFit, and what is keeping it alive amongst people which maybe have felt a bit disassociated with the CrossFit Open and the season, like again going back to the quarterfinals being taken away, when that might have been potentially a really viable option for some athletes. You know, me not so long ago, like getting to the quarterfinals, I'm like, yes, I've got something tangible which I can work for and try to beat next year, and you know, not worry about the semi-finals being too far off. A lot of people just making the quarterfinals would have been a massive deal, but if they don't have that, like I said, with CrossFit taking those away completely, you might have lost your feeling of perhaps being recognised as part of the community and knowing exactly where you stand. But these independent competitions give people a chance to get out there, get competing, express some of the qualities that they're perhaps training in the gym. And you look at the inverse of that, maybe if people aren't getting that or involved in a community where there is independent competitions, maybe they're going to feel like they don't want to train and they don't want to push themselves quite so hard. So that's another section of it which is a positive, really. Obviously there is negative sides to it if you're in a place where perhaps there isn't an active CrossFit community actively pushing competitions your way. So I suppose that ties in better to the title of the video, but yeah, there's two sides to every coin there, but more so rather than complaining in this part of it, I'm just saying that I'm impressed with that side. And there you have it, the ramblings of an online coach in the CrossFit world. The problem with CrossFit, not all negative, some positives woven in there, but main thing is, what I'm most happy with is I'm rounding up this video, and that means I'm going to have a video to post in May. I committed to one video every single month, as I mentioned at the start, and it is hard, not because it's particularly hard to create a YouTube video in 31 days, but fitting it into a schedule where you're pumping out content for social media, and admittedly is absolutely not a priority, but it's something that I want to build in the background. I want to have it ticking over, and I want to eventually get to a point where I can make YouTube more of a priority, because I definitely do enjoy the production of things. And there's quite simply more of it to do in creating longer form content. But when longer form content doesn't pay the bills, you've got to donate the appropriate time to it. So one video a month, we'll see where it gets me. If I can get 12 videos out for the year, that will be a win within itself. Do I care if they get more than 100 views? No, not really. I think I'm just going to keep the production a bit lower quality, rather than trying to run my eye over every single thing the way that I would do for short form, which is probably backwards for some people. But like I said, short form is really the priority, and what keeps me relevant, keeps me in the loop with coaching, and it really is a necessity, whereas YouTube, not quite so much. But hopefully it gives people a bit more of an insight into what I am doing, what I'm up to, what is ticking over in the background of my mind about the industry that I am in. It's a weird one. Sometimes I feel like I'm not in an industry per se, even though I am, because there's not a great deal of other people like in my immediate circle doing the same thing, which might sound stupid in Bali, but that's just the way it goes sometimes, because so many people are passing through, in and out. You do come into contact with people, but not so much on a daily basis, being purely online anyway. Maybe I'll keep these videos a little bit more to what's going on in Bali rather than forcing a topic, but I don't know, at least you can plug into some verbal diarrhea when you need to, if you do subscribe. Which brings me on to subscribe if you don't subscribe already, to hear more Suffolk drool and pointless ramblings. But they're going to get less pointless, they're going to get more engaging. It's just a matter of time. Stick with me for the whole year. for minimal channel growth. That's what we're talking about. Okay, bye.